Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, my friends, the left is in absolute utter panic mode about Graham Platner and his chances of winning his U.S. Senate race in the state of Maine. He was interviewed with Chris Hayes on MS Now. That's the rebranded version of MSNBC. He was interviewed by Chris Hayes, and they went through some of these allegations. I'm going to go through these allegations to the best of my ability. I'm going to play some of these clips from his interview. We are going to discuss, my friends, but I want to say thank you for tuning in. If you have your thoughts, questions, feedback, any of those things, always include the appropriate amounts of adoration and praise, of course, for yours truly. Kidding, but not kidding. You can text 317-785-1030, 317-785-1030. You can also, if you're watching this on social media, you can simply share your thoughts in the comments below. I welcome them, even if they're deranged comments from unhinged leftists. Whatever you got to say, you expose yourself. I tell you, the things that I've heard and read and seen are quite entertaining coming from those on the left. So that's what we're doing today, my friends. It is a Friday, so I hope you have a wonderful weekend as well. Had to grab something here off of the printer back here. So, friends, before we get started, though, there's a lot of confusion out there about Kratom. Probably heard the headlines, and most of those are based on synthetic junk that isn't real kratom at all. Real kratom is tested, it's handled with care, and that's exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. They are a family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. They lab test every batch to make sure that there are no chemicals, no fillers, and of course, there are no shortcuts. This is a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations, and it is a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with a warning label that is as long as a CVS receipt. You can start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon Todd Huff saves you 10% off your first order. Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com is the website. Again, Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, and transparency. Let's go through the list of allegations made against Grant Platner. This is a summary of those that we know of as of today, June 5th. And I'm going to be fair here. I'm going to be fair. I don't know if these allegations are true. Some of these things I know are true because I've seen the Nazi tattoo. He's actually talked about this. There are pictures of this. There's physical evidence of this. It's quite ironic watching the Democrat Party circle behind a guy who had a literal Nazi tattoo after calling Trump and people like me and conservatives and even some Republicans who may not even be conservative. They called all sorts of folks like that Nazis, yet they are lining up to vote for one in the state of Maine. Well, I should say vote for one who wore their tattoo. If I walked around wearing a baseball hat of a team, the assumption is that I am a fan of the team. Suppose it's not completely true, but if you're going to permanently put something on your body, I guess with a baseball hat, you have some people that just like the colors. They think it looks good. Reminds me of the Seinfeld, as many things do. When Elaine went to the Yankees game, she sat in the owner's box and she wore the Orioles, the opposing team, the Baltimore Orioles hat And the gentleman that gave them the tickets objected. She said, "What's it matter? It's just a hat. Thought I would have some fun with it. I like the other team. I'm from Baltimore." He said, "No, you can't do that and sit in the owner's box." I said, "The guy, he owns the team. He wants his team to do well. You can't be sitting there with the other team's hat on." And of course, she gets removed from the ballpark. It turns into a whole thing, as it always does on Seinfeld. But you permanently put a mark on your body, a tattoo. You would think that you knew what it meant. You would think that you would understand that that's what you're identifying with. But that's in these list of allegations too. So I'm going to go through this. But I don't know some of these allegations. I don't know if they're true. I'm simply telling you what has been reported because this is important. So let's go through the list right now. He was accused by an ex-girlfriend, which we'll get to the details here in a moment, of physical abuse. Her name, Lindsay Fifield. She alleges that Platner grabbed her hard enough to leave marks, pulled her from a cab by the wrist, twisted her arm behind her back, and then held her in a room. That's the allegations. Platner denies it. I'm not here to say that any of us know what happens or what happened there. I'm also not going to make ridiculous comments that say we must believe all women. I'm also not going to dismiss these out of hand because certainly she could be telling the truth. I just don't know. That's a fair way to approach this. I wish more people would handle these things that way. But that's one allegation. It is simply that at this point. It's disturbing. I hope that it didn't happen, whether he's a political adversary in this particular case or not. But that is an allegation. A second allegation is one that he doesn't really dispute. I guess he disputes some of them. Misogynistic and disturbing conduct toward women. Fifield, that's the ex-girlfriend, and other women allege demeaning behavior from Platner toward them, heavy drinking, infidelity, disturbing comments. I'm reading here from these list of allegations. The comments about rape, disturbing comments it says about rape and weapons, and unsettling relationship behavior. Platner disputes the worst of the allegations. So some of them he concedes and says, yes, I did it, or he doesn't at least put up a fight to deny. But for the most serious allegations, he says that, look, I dispute these, I deny these. If I did some of these things that are being alleged, this is behavior that came out of me from PTSD and struggles with alcohol consumption. Then we've got the third allegation type here. That's this Nazi-linked tattoo called the Totenkopf. So Platner had a skull tattoo resembling, reading here from summaries from news reports, but a skull tattoo resembling the SS Totenkopf. He says he did not know the Nazi meaning when he got it and later covered it up. He had this tattoo for 17 or 18 years. 17 or 18 years, my friends, wearing a tattoo that was used on people who were Nazis, literal Nazis, not people who the media today calls Nazis, not people with whom someone just has a political disagreement, literal Nazis in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Platner says he didn't know the meaning of the tattoo when he got the tattoo, and he later got the thing covered up. Critics, of course, say he knew earlier. Some people probably assume he knew the time that he got it. But nonetheless, he could, I suppose, I don't know. Why would you get something on you that you don't know the meaning? You could say it's an honest mistake. That's a big mistake. That's a real big mistake hanging out there. CNN and others, CNN, by the way, our friends over at CNN that wouldn't know the truth if it smacked them up the side of the head with a 2x4, they have and other sources have reported evidence undercutting his Platner's claims that he only recently learned about what the Nazi tattoo really was. So you've got actual people out there whose job, full-time job on the media, on the left, is to defend people like Platner, because nothing is more important to these folks than winning elections, than wielding political power, than stopping Donald Trump. And so some of those folks who wake up each and every day asking how they can stop conservatism, the Make America Great Again movement, how they can defend Democrats, how they can help support the radical left's agenda. They're out there, some of them anyway, saying that there is evidence that Platner knew this long before his recent claim, when he said, I only recently found out. There's a whole bunch here, my friends, a lot of things we got to get through. An ex-girlfriend says he knowingly called that tattoo My Totenkopf. So Feifel, that ex-girlfriend, alleges he knew the tattoo's meaning years ago, and he would talk about it as though he did. Platner denies knowingly wearing this Nazi-linked symbol. So she says, hey, not only did he know it, that's how he referred to it as My Totenkopf. That's, again, what her claim is. Again, we don't believe all people because they're women or because they're men. We don't know. We do know he had the tattoo. We do know that it's a Nazi tattoo. We don't know if this guy either had no idea, which seems, look, there's, again, legitimate questions as to why someone would put something on their body not knowing something important like that. I suppose in this brain-dead culture that we live in, that somebody just would say, put that tattoo on me because I like it. But you would think over the course of 17 or 18 years from the time he got it until the time he had it removed or covered up, that someone along the way would have said, hey, dude, that's a Nazi tattoo. Might want to get that taken care of. Feifel's girlfriend basically said if someone had said that, and we don't know that happened, but if they did, he would have said, hey, man, it's My Totenkopf. Which, again, if he knows that phrase, then he would know exactly what it is, because that was the term that was used as we laid out earlier. Number 5, he was alleged to have sent sexually explicit texts while married. May I add that it was soon after getting married. Reports say his wife told campaign aides he had exchanged sexually explicit messages with multiple women early in their marriage. Platner has acknowledged a painful marital issue, but characterized the coverage of this as gossip. So again, that's the allegation. That's all that this is, but that's his response. Number 6, we know, this is allegations that we know to be true, old Reddit posts downplaying sexual assault concerns. A 2013 Reddit comment suggested people should avoid getting intoxicated around people they are uncomfortable with. Critics say that Platner blamed rape victims. PolitiFact ranked one attack on this as, quote, half true, noting the ad exaggerated but was based on a real post. So it's been uncovered what his username was on Reddit, and people have gone back and read some of these comments and threads, and some of these are troubling, to say the least. I haven't gone through all of them. I've certainly seen some of them. But that's another thing that we've found that is alleged concerning Graham Platner, the Democrat candidate for U.S. Senate in the state of Maine. Now, I'll pause there. There's still 3 more, by the way. I've just gotten through a series of these, but there are 3 more types of allegations, or specific types of allegations here that I want to get to. But let's talk really quickly about what's happening in Maine. We know that the U.S. Senate is relatively tight. We know that the Democrat Party thinks that it has an opportunity to gain control of the U.S. Senate in the 2026 midterms. We know that that's going to be tough. I'm not an odds maker, but I would say that winning the Senate is going to be more difficult, potentially significantly more difficult than winning the U.S. House. That's my assessment. I think that that's pretty straightforward and obvious. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the Senate, senators serve 6-year terms. So Susan Collins is the Republican who's currently Republican, who has been elected to serve and represent the people of Maine. By the way, beautiful state, the state of Maine. We went up there a couple of years ago in the fall, and it was beautiful. I loved Arcadia National Park. It was a very nice place. But it is definitely liberal or even left leaning. We went to Bar Harbor, or as we're supposed to say, Bahaba, but we had it's a nice town. It was really nice when the tide goes out. There's a bar that you can walk across to an island out in the harbor. It's just really neat. You can only stay out there for a certain length of time because when the tide comes in, you're stuck out there if you went by foot, or some people drive some things over there, and there's pictures of people getting stranded because they didn't leave at the appropriate time. But nonetheless, it's a nice, real beautiful area, but it's a left leaning. It's there's certainly conservatives and conservative pockets in Maine, but there's a lot of left-leaning individuals. And Susan Collins is one of the most unreliable and moderate Republicans in the U.S. Senate. Her and Lisa Murkowski fight for control of that honor each and every time that they're casting their ballots and so forth. But it's very important to Democrats. This is an opportunity they see to win. But it's harder to win the Senate because they, Democrats, have not all senators are up for re-election. So 1/3 of senators are up for re-election roughly each election cycle. So depending who's on the ballot, there are some races that Republicans are almost guaranteed to win, and there are some races, of course, Democrats are almost guaranteed to win. So they have to net seats. So right now it's 53 Republicans in the Senate. There's technically only 45 Democrats. There are 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats. And so there is this back and forth potential in the U.S. Senate, but there's 53-47 apparently the current breakdown of the U.S. Senate. And so there's a potential back and forth ebb and flow, but you have to net seats. So you have to win seats that Republicans currently have in order to make it 52-48 or 51-49 and then 50-50. But remember, since Trump is going to be president in 2026 after these midterm elections, J.D. Vance owns the tie-breaking vote as the president of the Senate. That's one of the roles of the vice president of the United States. He's president of the Senate, and so a 50-50 race would have to be actually 50. The only way Democrats can control it is if they get a true majority, 51. So they would have to net 4 seats. And you're already starting, I don't know how many exactly, so I haven't looked recently, but how many Senate races there are in this year. There's typically 33 or 34, unless there's a special election for something, but it's around that number typically every year or every election. And so you start factoring in if we're losing a chance to win one of these potentially winnable seats because our candidate has these allegations that he's not answered. We've got serious problems here. So let's get back here now. I just wanted to paint what's at stake and why it matters so much, and why some people are willing to turn a blind eye to this sort of stuff, or to talk about justifying it and everything else. Look, I know people on the left think that this is nothing compared to what they have on President Trump. I mean, they have Trump as trying to overthrow our country, right? They have Trump as colluding with Vladimir Putin to steal the election in 2016. This is the world that they live in. This is what they think. So they think, how can a Trump supporting Republican, or how can a Trump supporter have anything to say about these things? Well, I mean, this is actual evidence. There are allegations here brought forth, not, that's a lot of what's said about Trump is just, again, you look at the Russian collusion stuff, you look at January 6th, you look at how many times his comments were just either taken completely out of context or were not framed the correct way so that people understood what he was saying, what he was trying to communicate, especially his speech on January 6th. I'm not here to defend everything that Trump has said and done. That would be completely, utterly ridiculous. Friends, I'm not here to defend everything I've ever said and done. I'm just telling you what Democrats are wrestling with here and dealing with as they head into this 2026 campaign. Number 7, the 7th type of allegation here against Graham Platner are that he made crude and vulgar Reddit posts, which again is kind of an extension of the previous allegation. Unearthed post includes graphic comments about porta potties. I don't want to get into all this. It was quite disgusting what he said about that. Sexual graffiti, sex workers, and military settings. Some reporting is from partisan/conservative outlets, but the posts were tied to a Reddit handle Platner acknowledged using. So there's evidence. Who cares who reported it if there's actual evidence? Look, I'll harp on CNN because they have a reputation of not being the most trusted name in news, with me anyway. I've watched what they've said and done for a long, long time. But sometimes CNN can report something that's true. It's not that everything they say is completely false, but there is a history. NBC, a lot of these folks have a history of reporting things that are false, or as Trump would say, fake news. But it doesn't mean that when you look at something that's reported, you say, well, that's coming from an outlet that I don't agree with, a conservative outlet or whatever. Sometimes, you got to evaluate the claim. You got to evaluate it based upon what we know. And these comments were made from a Reddit handle that Platner has acknowledged using. I got more to say about this, friends, but I have to take a quick time out. You're listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, the one and only benevolent dictator here behind the microphone, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Second segment here on this Friday. Appreciate you tuning into the program. Today, we're talking about Graham Platner, the allegations, and they're just allegations. I'm not here to condemn the guy. There are certainly concerning things, some things that we know there's evidence that we can track down and tie to him, but not everything. We don't know. I try to be very fair on that, even if I disagree with this guy politically, which I do. I do believe in justice, and this guy needs to be treated fairly, but there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here, my friends. Let's be honest, though, when your financial world starts getting more complicated, you need more than one-size-fits-all advice. That's where Full Suite Wealth shines the brightest. Their team specializes in working with families and individuals at your level, offering personalized guidance that goes far beyond the basics, from private equity and private credit to options strategies and coordinated legal planning. Full Suite Wealth helps you see the big picture and make confident decisions about your legacy. It's all about having a dedicated team to guide you each and every step of the way so you can focus on what matters most: your family, your goals, and your future. If you want real confidence in your financial life, head on over to FullSuiteWealth.com. That is FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy. Secure your future. Okay, let's get back to some of these allegations here. made against Graham Platner. I've got two more types of allegations. And again, these are just allegations. Doesn't mean that they're true, but it's certainly concerning seeing some of these things. And some of these things, again, there's evidence to support. So the eighth type of allegation here is anti-police and inflammatory Reddit posts. So this may actually help him in the defund the police crowd in the radical left and Democrat Party. But according to reports, old posts included coarse criticism of police. Main police groups have condemned these posts. Other resurfaced posts reportedly called, Platner reportedly called himself a communist, an Antifa super soldier, and he had agreed, again, according to allegations here, with derogatory descriptions of rural white Americans. Why hate groups of people like that? Why openly hate? You know the amount of hatred you see from certain people in the radical left for specifically white Americans, white Christians, white conservatives. It's a remarkable thing to hate a group of people for based upon just the color of their skin predominantly. People who had nothing to do with the egregious things that have happened in this country. But nonetheless, that's some of his comments. Platner, by the way, is white. I don't know if he knows that. I don't know if he thinks that he's changed his race through some sort of a trans experiment or something. But nonetheless, that's where he falls on that particular issue, the issue of policing, the issue of just what he thinks about Antifa. Antifa is literally a domestic terrorist organization. Terrorism, my friends, by definition, is when a individual or a group of people use the threat of violence or actual violence for political purposes. That's exactly what Antifa is doing, and there's evidence of that all over the place. That's their reason for existence. One more category here of allegation, then I'll play some of these clips from Platner's interview with Chris Hayes on MS Now, which is trying to rebrand MSNBC for whatever reason. They're the same people doing the same things under a different banner. But anyway, the last allegation that I'm aware of as of now are political posts and comments about political violence. One resurfaced post reportedly said to fight with signs, which that's okay. That's protest. And fists. Okay, that's not protest. I mean, if you're defending yourself, fine. But the implication here. And guns, if need be. So Platner appears to be, if this post is truly his, seems to be saying that he's ready to turn this cold civil war that we are enduring into a hot civil war using guns to, I guess, shoot conservatives and Republicans and so forth. So that's what has been levied, the allegations that have been levied against Graham Platner. Again, it doesn't mean that they're true. And candidly, the number of allegations doesn't mean anything either. This matters to the mind of a lot of people. It could matter, right? Where there's smoke, there is possibly or probably fire. That's the old adage, the old metaphor anyway. But the number of allegations could mean something. It could not mean something. But these things, based upon what we know, certainly if they're true, are major problems from the radical left, especially I shouldn't say especially, but one of the obvious ones is, the left has invested 10 years into calling Republicans Nazis. I've got called. When I went and spoke at the State House here in Indianapolis in December of last year, when I took to the floor at the Turning Point Action event, and I spoke at the Capitol in support of Indiana Republicans redistricting our U.S. congressional districts. I spoke in defense of that. I've explained why I won't do that here. I'm consistent on this. I say that Democrats can do the same thing if they've got the political power to do it. They just have to follow the laws that pertain to how districts can be drawn, when they can be drawn, the ways they have to be drawn, per the rules or sometimes the Constitution in their particular states. Our state, Indiana, all we had to do was have a vote. We didn't want to do it. Anyway, I don't want to rehash that. But people were yelling at me from the balcony. Cheater, cheater. A Nazi was being yelled. I think fascist was being yelled as well. And it only just, they can say whatever they want to say. Their opinions of me matter not at all. They don't matter to me at all. I was actually quite entertained and, dare I say, energized when I was out there, because it's so absurd and ridiculous. You can tune into this program. I have 11 years in August. August 10th is our 11th anniversary. I've got 11 years of archives of me talking, sharing my opinions and thoughts. You can go back and listen to any of those that you want. I am there for anybody who wants to see it. I'm not afraid of their words, their attempt to try to brand me as anything. I tell people what I believe. It doesn't matter to me what those clowns and knuckleheads and people who can't even define fascist and Nazi, what they're out there saying. So anyway, I want to get to a couple of clips here where Chris Hayes of MS Now is interviewing Graham Platner, and he asks about these messages, these sexting, the sexting he had soon after being married. He was sexting allegedly. Seems as though he's admitted to this. It's a game here. But Platner is being asked about this by Chris Hayes, trying to help do damage control as they move towards this election cycle. Here's the interview. Here's at least this particular part of the interview. Well, I say that, and now my computer is not wanting to cooperate. I should tell you, we just had new internet installed here. New internet from Starlink. So that's what we're using now. It's incredibly fast, but sometimes the computer's got too much going on, which I think is the problem right now. Hopefully that's all that it is. So we've got it spinning here. So I'm not going to be able to get... Yes, I can. Okay, pause this. Hold on. Sorry about that, my friends. Here's Chris Hayes talking with Graham Platner.
Just to be clear, just about revisiting, right? I mean, I think channeling concerns, I think, of Democratic voters and Democratic officials and a lot of people, right? That it's not a question of revisiting, right? It's new revelations, like vis-a-vis, texts or pictures. And I know you want to give some privacy to your marriage, but I really do feel like I need to get these answers from you, which is like, the people you were texting with, whatever that was, in whatever context, they were adult women, you knew that, and it was consensual. Is that true?
Yes.
And you have that you confirmed that. You knew their age.
Yes. Oh, God. I mean, yeah. Yes, of course.
Okay, so he's asking, whatever you texted these individuals, it was consensual. You confirm that, and you know their age. I think it just hit Platner. Oh my goodness, this could turn into me being a pedophile or some such thing. Me being on Dateline with what was his name? I can't think. Chris something. He definitely doesn't want to have to deal with that. So these are questions that they're actually asking the guy. I've got more that I'm going to play after the break, but I got to take a time out. My friends, sit tight. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. I want to get to two of these clips as quickly as possible. Graham Platner talking to Chris Hayes of MS Now. One of the biggest challenges conservatives have is finding ways to ensure their values align with everything that they do, and that includes how they invest their money. That's why I love what the team at 48 Financial is doing. They specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that don't align with our faith and values, and so that keeps us from funding things we do not believe in, things that go completely against our values and beliefs. They do all the heavy lifting. All you have to do is complete an assessment to see what your investments, how those investments align with your values. And so you can take that assessment at 48financial.com/Todd. Again, 48financial.com/Todd. 48Financial, because our money should work for our values. And certainly, my friends, not against them. I don't have a lot of time. This is our shortest segment of the three segments in our program. I want to start here playing a clip about where Graham Platner denies the allegations of physical abuse with his ex-girlfriend. Here that is.
There's some serious stuff there I want to go through with you, and I think voters have a right to know about it. And I want to start with what Ms. Fifield says about being rough is the term the Times. And I'm going to just read you the account so you have it. This is from the Times. Mr. Platner could be rough with her, Ms. Fifield said, particularly when they were drinking, leaving her shaken and sometimes afraid. In the interviews, she grappled with how to process her experiences. She was quick to note, he never hit me, he never punched me. She said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks. On one occasion, yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument in which she wanted to stay in the car. During one argument, she recalled he twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door closed from the other side so she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, Ms. Fifield said she fell asleep and left the next morning. It hurt, she said, but she added, it didn't cause any injury. It didn't break my arm. Did that happen?
No, it did not. There are some allegations in this piece that I just want to be kind of unequivocal about are simply not true. Anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew what my tattoo was, these are the statements of someone who's politically motivated. In this piece, there's a lot about my struggling, not being a good boyfriend, certainly self-medicating with alcohol, and I've been very upfront since the beginning of this campaign that was a pretty dark period of my life after I came back from my combat service, and that's what that kind of life looks like. And so there are things in this that I absolutely will take responsibility for and have been speaking about openly for months now. But those serious allegations are just not true.
Okay, so he says they're false. He denies them unequivocally. And he's not claiming to be perfect, but there was no violence. He didn't know about his tattoo. His ex-girlfriend is politically motivated here. The left has to decide. I mean, they tell us that we're supposed to believe all women. Here's an opportunity for them to prove whether or not they take that seriously or not. I'm, again, consistent on this, as conservatives, I think, are. You can listen to what's being alleged and accused, and you can see what the evidence supports and make a decision based upon that. And I don't know. I'm not saying he's done this. I'm simply saying these are from the people. This defense of this guy is from the people who allegedly hate Nazis, accuse us of being Nazis, and tell us that when a woman makes an allegation, it's always 100% true. That's why we're to, quote, believe all women. He was also asked about his Nazi tattoo. I'm not going to probably get the whole thing in here, but I want you to at least hear this.
You mentioned the tattoo, so I want to talk about that because I think this was troubling to a lot of people, and I think, again, your account of it assuaged some of that fear, clearly in Maine voters, as reflected, again, by reporting and polling. She says, same person, that you referred to the tattoo as my Totenkampf, which is the German word for this particular Nazi symbol. There's other reporting in Jewish Insider in October in which an anonymous acquaintance says you used that same phrase. Did you know what this tattoo was about before last October when you said you first became aware of it?
No, I did not. And I also think it's important to note that it's very likely, and I think that she is that same source. She's the person who's been telling people this from the beginning. And so I feel like, we're kind of rehashing the thing we've been through. I had that tattoo for 17 years. It's a skull and crossbones. I got it with other Marines who I served with in Iraq, in Croatia. And in the time that I had it, I got a security clearance with the State Department. I re-enlisted in the United States Army, where I was screened for gang and hate tattoos. And I took my shirt off in front of my family, many of whom are Jewish. We even released as a campaign a video, which you're putting up on the screen right now, of me dancing at my brother's wedding to his wife, who is Jewish, and
Shirtless,
her
by
fully
the way.
extended Jewish family. And I would not have taken my shirt off in that context if I had known. And so any statement saying that I did know is again, totally false.
Okay, so that's what he has to say. I would add, well, if someone's making a statement that he told them, he called this my Totenkampf or what have you, that's one thing. That's an allegation of truth. But if people want to conclude that they think he knew it, it's not lying. They're just drawing a conclusion. You can deny it. It doesn't mean that they have to believe your assessment of things. I got to go, friends. Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice weekend, SDG.